Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to Hebrew Ross Lesson 2. This is the second lesson in Ross's textbook, and here we're going to deal with the Hebrew vowels. Now, you may not know this, but in the original Hebrew writing system, and therefore, we're dealing with Hebrew writing, we're dealing with the transmission of Hebrew biblical text, the original Hebrew writing system was consonantal. That is to say, no vowel signs were represented orthographically. In the orthography, or the writing system of Hebrew, they didn't originally have vowel signs. Now, no writing system ever perfectly represents all the sounds and words of any language. And the purpose of the orthography, or the writing system, is simply to signal sufficient information to a language user or to a native speaker to know the words and forms of words that are intended by the communicator in the written form of the language. Just to give you an example, in English, we have the letter A. And the letter A, when it's written, doesn't always represent the identical sound, right? So if we take the word B-A-T and then maybe the word B-A-K-E, these are the same symbol, but they really don't represent exactly the same sound. Bat represents a short A sound. Bake, that word represents a long A sound. Same symbol, but different sounds, because no symbol and no writing system perfectly represents all the sounds of a language. The use of the A here, though, is sufficient enough for a reader to know, given the other information, which vowel sound to make, because they already know this word. Now, imagine trying to read English without the vowels of the language, though. That's a little bit more challenging. It's more challenging than just pronouncing the words that we see. So let's take a look at an example here. Let's try this. Take a look right here. I have a sequence of consonants. They do represent English words, but just with the vowels missing. Are you able to discern what Bible verse or part of a Bible verse this is right here? And that might be pretty difficult, right? Let's add some spaces. What do you see? That seems a little bit clearer, doesn't it? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. We are dealing here with John 3:16. Now, you all have probably heard that verse. Maybe you memorized it as a young person. Well, in Hebrew, for a long time, their writing system was represented only by consonants. No vowels were actually marked. Here's how the first words of Genesis 1:1 look in Hebrew without the vowel points. This would be written Bereshith, Bara, Elohim, or it would be pronounced that way. Now, just because Hebrew didn't write the vowels doesn't mean that the Hebrew language didn't use vowels. It's just that the vowels themselves were not represented in writing. They were always spoken. It's impossible to speak any language without vowels. Now, once we add the vowel points, then it would look something like this. Notice that the consonants are all the same, but we have superimposed upon it a system of vowel points. Bereshith, bara, Elohim. Now, that's a text that's pointed. Now, let's talk about the use of the mater to mark vowels. And we're going to talk about what that word means there. Due to potential ambiguities in the Hebrew consonantal text, Jewish scribes by the 6th century BC were inserting certain consonant symbols into the text to mark vowels. This was not always done consistently, so the scribes that inserted these consonant marking vowels, or these vowel marking consonant letters, they didn't always do this evenly throughout the text. Now, the word for these consonant symbols used to mark vowels is the Latin word mater, and the word mater means mother, okay? Matres is simply the plural form of mater, so it means mothers. And then if you add this other word, lecciones, then it would be mothers of reading. Okay? And if you imagine how a little baby would be learning how to walk, a mother will often stand behind the child and hold on to the hands of the child and help the child stand up and take little steps to begin walking. Well, in a sense, these consonants that were used as vowels are mothers of reading, not mothers of walking. And they were used to assist the reader in making sure that the reader pronounced the words properly. Now, the most common mater letters indicating vowel sounds were he, vav, and yod. And I have those here on your notes for you. He, vav, and yod. Now, the he was used frequently to represent an A sound or sometimes an O sound. The vav was used frequently to represent a U sound or an O sound, and the yod was used to represent an I or an E sound. So those are the most frequent sorts of vowel sounds that these matras, these mothers of reading consonants, were used for. Now, realize when a he, vav, or yod is used as a mater, then it is not a consonant at that point, okay? Maters are not technically consonants. They don't represent consonants. They are simply consonant symbols that have been conscripted they are simply consonant symbols that have been forced into this use as vowel markers. So they actually represent vowels here, not consonants. So do not be confused by this. When we come to how to transliterate a mater, you'll see that we're not actually using an H, W, or Y symbol as we have done when our English transliteration was used for those when they represent consonants. Now let's look at some examples of some ambiguities where using a mater in the consonantal text might have been actually helpful for somebody reading the Hebrew Bible. Let's take this first example. This is the sequence of consonants Beit Tav, right here. And somebody coming across this sequence of consonants that constitutes a word in the Hebrew Bible would know that this could represent the word bat, and it could represent the word bait. Now, bat and bait, both being possible pronunciations of that word, mean different things. Bat means daughter, bait means house or house of. So if the scribe comes across this word and says, well, that's the word bat, and I know it's the word bat given the context, that's supposed to be the word daughter, the scribe would do nothing and leave it be, and then it would be read as bat by subsequent readers. But if the scribe had realized, this isn't bat, this is bait, but some people might accidentally read it as bat. So I'm going to ensure that it's pronounced with the E sound and not the A sound. Then what he would do is he would insert a yod between the beit and the tav to produce this sequence. Okay? So adding the yod guarantees that the reader is not going to pronounce this word as bat when it really should be bait. Okay? And the same with this sequence, ayin lamed. That sequence of consonants could represent the word all or the word olah. Al means over or upon. Olah means offering. And to the scribe, if this simply was the word all, over or above, he wouldn't do anything. He would just leave the consonants the way they were. But if it were the word olah, he might think, I really ought to add something on the end to indicate that this has a second syllable. It's not al, but olah. And so I'm going to add a hey to the end of this word to ensure that it is not mispronounced all, but rather pronounced as the other word olah. And so adding the mater he at the back ensured the proper pronunciation. Okay, so these are just examples where ambiguities could be rectified through the use of a mater. Now in point number 3, let's talk about Masoretic vowel pointing. During the exile and the diaspora of the Jews, which was around 6th century BC and beyond, Hebrew was beginning to be spoken less and less as Jews began interacting with their neighbors in Greek and Aramaic. So some Jews were dispersed east of Palestine, and Aramaic was the lingua franca, the common language of diplomacy and business. And if they were dispersed into the west, then they were speaking Greek. Now, starting around AD 600, and then throughout the medieval period, Jewish scribes, collectively known as Masoretes, began to adopt a system of written vowel pointing in order to preserve the vocalization of the consonantal text that they had received. So when you come to a Hebrew text and it has Masoretic vowel pointing in it, then that's referred to as a pointed text. And if you have a Hebrew manuscript that has just the script, the consonantal script, and no vowel pointing, then that is described as an unpointed text, just to make it clear what the terminology is here. Now, when the Masoretes developed this alphabet, and let me just say that there were several places in the world that you had Masoretes working. Babylon was one such place, but in Palestine is another, and then we had Masoretes working in an area known as Tiberias in Galilee. This Tiberian system is the one that won out, or became the more popular one, and that has been preserved in our printed text of the Hebrew Bible today. So what I'm describing here, and will be describing when we talk about vowel pointings, is the Tiberian system. Now, where were these vowel points located then in the Tiberian system? Most of the vowels are going to be written immediately below the consonant. And so you'll pronounce the consonant first and then the vowel sound that's written below the consonant. And then in a few situations, the vowel is written immediately to the left of the consonant or above the consonant. And again, when it's above the consonant, it will be slightly to the left also. Remember, in Hebrew, we're reading from right to left. So just as an example, going back to the text of Genesis 1:1, the first part of that, notice that my vowel pointing here is under the consonants, under the Beth, under the Resh. Now, under the Shin, I have a dot. Under the Beth and Resh, I have vowel points. Under the Aleph here, and this dot here is the letter, or the vowel O, the O sound, Elohim. And notice it is written to the left and slightly above, okay, above this typical sort of stopping line. And then the dot under the hey here. So those are all examples of where typically you're going to place the vowel point. Masoretic vowel points were superimposed upon the received consonantal text with the system of matris lectionis, creating a situation where sometimes a symbol was doubly marked for the vowel. So where no mater existed, a Masoretic vowel point would be inserted there. We need to tell people how to pronounce that syllable. But even where a mater already existed, the Masoretes didn't just leave the mater there and add no vowel point. They still placed their own distinctive vowel point there as well. And they left the mater where it was also. And they were preservers, and this is important. They were not really trying to be innovators. They were preservers. They were preservers of the reading tradition that they had received, and in no way sought to add a mater where one hadn't been placed, or to remove one that was already there. They wanted to be faithful to the reading tradition they had, and they wanted to be faithful to the consonantal text that they had. And so if there wasn't a mater marking a vowel, they put their own. And if there already was a mater, they still put their own vowel. So really, these are the system of matris lectionis and the Masoretic vowel pointing system, they're really two different systems that at times coalesce and are doubly marking a syllable. So just as an example, let's take the word between in Hebrew. You notice here that I actually have two possible spellings using the consonantal system. Like I mentioned, there are times where the pre-Masoretic scribes would have inserted the mater yod here to indicate that this should be an E sound. And but there is one instance in the Bible where the yod was not inserted. It was still the word between, and it would have been pronounced bane either way, bane or bane. But for some reason, they failed to insert a mater here. Okay, so they were uneven in their distribution of the matris lectionis. When the Masoretes then come along and they start adding their vowel points to the consonantal text, they want to add the E vowel. They're going to put that double dot here, which we're going to learn in just a minute, and that would produce the sound bane, bane. Remember, consonant, then vowel pronounced under it, and then the next consonant, bane. Over here, on the other hand, there was already a mater yod to tell the reader to read that as bane. They didn't say, oh, well, I guess it's already marked. We don't need to use our Masoretic E. No, they didn't do that. They went ahead and put their E under the beth anyway, but left the mater yod here as well. And this is also pronounced bane. And so this spelling and this spelling are slightly different. They're the same, pronounced the same word. When the mater is visible, along with the Masoretic vowel, this is often described as the full spelling, okay? And in Latin, it's often described as plene spelling. Plene, full. When the mater, which normally would have been here in almost every instance, the mater was added, and the Masoretes then just put the sere vowel here. So that's the more common way to write it. But when it is omitted, but normally supposed to be there, this is described as the defective spelling. Defective and full spelling refers to the way the vowels are spelled. Defective spelling means normally there's a mater, but here it's missing. Okay? So that's just a matter of spelling convention. Now, let's talk about the actual vowel points themselves now.